Hello again and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse and I am back for another channel update and kind of random topic video. I do these usually about once or twice a month depending on how much is going on with games and accessibility, technology, events, that kind of a thing. And like I said, the last couple of months, September, October, have been very busy. I did one of these videos earlier this month, but knew I was probably going to do another one after the Game Accessibility Conference, after a few more games had come out, and that kind of a thing. But I'm glad I waited because I have a new topic now that I want to chat a little bit about, and that is kind of dealing with one of the videos I recently posted that surprisingly is getting a lot of attention, a lot of views. Before I go into that, though, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is Illegally Cited, and I focus on covering technology, games, virtual, augmented reality, all those types of things, assistive technology from a legally blind perspective. So, people who are visually impaired, legally blind, like myself, who has some usable vision, but may have trouble seeing certain types of things like small print or fine detail, and then also covering content for people who are totally blind, because yes, totally blind people can play games. They do play games. They use technology. They use smartphones, and I mean smartphones themselves are a huge accessibility tool. Computers are a huge accessibility tool. So for people who still think that that is not a thing, sorry, but you are dead wrong. But welcome to everyone. If you did check out the Spider-Man video that I did recently and you wanted to check out the channel further, if you just recently subscribed, I do unlock videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Sometimes I do more, again, depending on if there are events happening. Could be things like E3, technology events, some new game came out that had some amazing accessibility, or just something really, really newsworthy or something that I really wanted to cover. Everything is divided into playlists, so I have mainstream games that I cover as a legally blind or low vision player, so games that I use my vision to play. But I also have playlists for games that are accessible to totally blind players, and there is becoming an increasing number of these, both indie and AAA games. So again, don't discount video games for blind players. I mean, this year alone, Forza Motorsport, Mortal Kombat 1, Diablo 4, Stories of Blossom, Brock the Investigator. I'm just trying to think of getting names, games off the top of my head. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. I didn't even talk about mobile or other things, but those are just some key ones that I can think of right off the top of my head this year. Some of those are AAA, some of those are indie, and they are accessible to blind players. And it's awesome. So, like I said, I do have everything divided into playlists, so you should be able to find something that you're looking for. If you are interested in game accessibility, technology accessibility, I do have playlists for things like technology accessibility, game accessibility, VR accessibility. I have done presentations at the North American Game Accessibility Conference now twice. I've presented at our local independent games chapter, IGDA chapter, and I've done a few other podcast appearances, video interviews, and even a presentation on VR accessibility at the Inclusive Design 24 conference a few years ago. So again, for new viewers, just wanted to kind of give you an overview because there's been some conversation in the comments, and so just wanted to clear up a few things. But yeah, I mean, to everyone else who has been supporting the channel, whether it's, a few days or a few years, I've been doing this now for over 10 years. Thank you for your support. Very much appreciated. And yeah, so the main topic that I want to talk about a little bit here is the recent Spider-Man coverage, Spider-Man 2 coverage. Um, Normally, my videos, if I'm lucky, yeah, they get maybe, if it's a visual game that I play using my remaining vision, yeah, okay, I'm lucky to get, if I'm lucky, 100 views. Oftentimes, sometimes significantly less. If I'm covering a mainstream game or an audio game or a voiceover accessible game on the iPhone, I might get 100, 200, anywhere even up to 300, 400 views in a fairly short period of time, which is, again, for me, not bad. I know I've seen comments where people are like, oh, they gave review codes to a channel that only has, you know, 1,300 or 3,000 subscribers or whatever. Yeah, that's okay, whatever. But like I said, my channel is serving a kind of a niche audience, and there are becoming more of us again because people, blind and visually impaired people, do play games. But I woke up this morning. I posted my Spider-Man accessibility or launch day accessibility impressions video yesterday, and I'm like, okay, let me just check in, see if there are any comments, see just if it's the video is catching on. At the time of looking at it early this morning, it was at like 9.9K, almost 10,000 views. And I had to look at it 3, 4 times. I'm like, dude, what? That's insane. And then like right now, it's right around 13,000. So again, for me, I know that's chump change for many people, but yeah, for me, it is pretty significant. And I'm happy with that. Um, to address a couple things in that particular video. No, it was not a full review. It wasn't a low vision spotlight or an accessible game spotlight video because, again, I'm covering the game from an accessibility angle. And um, Insomniac has already let us know, this was 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago even, that this game wasn't going to have all of its accessibility features on launch. But sometime in December, they were planning on adding some additional fixes and additional accessibility features to the game. And that is when, unless they announce like any major other delays or significant updates that they plan on doing to the game, that is when I will hopefully be able to cover the game more fully and take a look at more variety in gameplay, some combat, some some traversal, maybe a story or side mission or something, like I usually do when I do a spotlight video. Um, I see a lot of comments, oh, he sucks at swinging around the city, or he swings and he runs into buildings. No, I did swing down a few streets, and I was just kind of playing around. I wanted to stay in kind of a small area because I didn't want to trigger any story or spoilery cutscenes, which was actually part of the NDA, by the way. So I wanted to make sure to be pretty safe with that. And besides, I just wanted to show the overall accessibility, the overall performance, and it is fun just swinging, even transitioning from swinging around the city to climbing up buildings. I mean, it is kind of cool. Just like, you're swinging around and then you're like, I want to get to the top of this building. Let's just wall run right up the side of a building, jump up, swing onto something else or whatever. So whatever, not a big deal. People can say what they're going to say. I don't really care. I find it amusing actually. But just addressing that. So yes, I will be covering Spider-Man 2 hopefully again in the future once those additional accessibility updates come out. I did get a few nice constructive suggestions. Trust me, you don't want me reading every little option, or you don't want me reading the description text for every option, because Admittedly, I am terrible at reading text aloud when I'm on camera. So unless you want the video to be 8 hours long, you really don't want that. Unless you want a good sleeping aid. But like I said, once the text to speech is there, if menu narration is there and I'm able to narrate or go through that, yeah, I can pause on things and have it read that kind of a thing to you. So there's that. But again, so thank you to everybody who has been viewing my Spider-Man 2 video. And if you did, and if you're watching this video, I do hope that you maybe do check out some of my other videos, maybe some low vision spotlights. Check out some accessible game spotlight videos, PC, Xbox, PS4, PS5, because there are accessible games on both. iOS, there's a ton of accessible games, text-based games, audio games, mainstream games that happen to be accessible. So maybe, check out some of those videos. Maybe you guys will learn something about accessibility if that is new to you. Even things, some of the recent stuff that I've been working on with a developer over the past few years. I've been working with the developer of the Toby Accessibility Doom mod. So this is a mod that makes the original Doom and Doom 2, along with the original levels and some new custom campaigns. He's got like three major new custom campaigns that he's released over the past couple of years, and these are blind playable. So somebody with no usable vision can, in fact, play basically my favorite game of all time, Doom, which is turning 30 friggin' years old this year. So it's only appropriate, even 30 years later, a game can be made accessible to a new audience. So that is a project that I've been kind of working with, like testing and ideas and, kind of consulting work with that. But yeah, so that's kind of, I just wanted to touch on some things with the Spider-Man accessibility. And I believe, again, people are like, oh, you didn't even know it was a PS5 exclusive. I was pretty sure that it was, but the thing was, I think in the beginning, especially, when they were developing it in COVID and Sony was announcing a lot of its upcoming games, and there was, there were still a lot of games that were being developed for both the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, especially when there was more of a console shortage of the PlayStation 5. And I thought I remembered at one time that they were considering doing Spider-Man 2 for both, but they had canceled development on the PlayStation 4 version. So yeah, go ahead and make fun of me. Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Fine, whatever. But that is the explanation for that as well. So you know what? Not gonna bother with the haters and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot I like about Spider-Man 2, and there's a lot I'm intrigued about with the upcoming December accessibility update. But I would also want to direct you, and I retweeted his post from earlier this morning. Check out Brandon Cole's review, because he mentioned a few things that I really didn't, and I wasn't really going to mention them until the accessibility features, but I'm kind of glad that he mentioned them now, because a couple of the major things that Insomniac said that they were going to add was audio description for cutscenes and menu narration. Awesome. Both are excellent. Both are amazing features. We've had at least a good 3 or 4 games in the last year and a half or so that have had audio description. The Last of Us 1 and 2. We've had, or no, 2 doesn't have it yet. But The Last of Us 1, the remaster. We have Forza has it. We have a few indie games that have it. Sequence Storm way back a few years ago had it. Brock the Investigator, Stories of Blossom does an amazing job. So yeah, and there's going to be more. Menu narration is great. But I would recommend you read Brandon Cole's review because he does touch on something very important. And I think it's great to be totally honest. And I probably would have come to a similar conclusion when I did my follow-up video had I not found things to be totally accessible for blind players. Because while I do have some usable vision, yes, I'm legally blind, but I do have some usable vision. I also try to look at things from the perspective of a blind player too, because I've played many audio games. I've tried to play when they're accessible. I've tried to play mainstream visual games with my monitor off or without looking at it. So I have that experience, and when I consult with developers, which I also do, that is something that I can bring to the table. And one of the things that he had mentioned about Spider-Man 2 was that, yeah, it's great that we're having menu narration. It's great that we're having audio description. But honestly, it's kind of weird to have, let's say, okay, so let me back up for a second. Both audio description and menu narration are not just helpful for totally blind players. Menu narration especially can help people with low vision who are legally blind, like myself. They may be able to help people who are dyslexic, who have information processing disorders, who may have a learning disability, any number of other things. People who process audio, maybe they prefer that over visually reading, and they just process verbal information better. So there's a lot of people that type of thing can help. And then the audio description, again, that's primarily for blind and low vision, but, if somebody is, let's say if it's a movie, and they're having it on in the background, it's kind of like listening to like an audio or radio drama, or something where you don't have to look at it. Maybe you're watching a TV show or listening to a movie, and you're making dinner or you're doing stuff around your home, and you want to have some of that additional context. So there's nothing that says a fully sighted person couldn't use it. So that's a little bit more background on those two types of features. And while it's great that Insomniac is doing that, Brandon made a really good point about instead of focusing on those first, they almost need to focus more on different aspects of the actual gameplay. Because, they may be able to, let's say they get through the tutorial mission or whatever, and they start swinging around the world, and they get a side mission, they get a story mission. What happens if they have the camera follows the character, they have a thing where you can click on the right thumbstick, it will point you to your next objective, but it does not account for subtlety. So when you're outside, it can pretty much cover, like it'll eventually get you there. You may have to crawl over a building, you may have to, like if it is pointing you directly toward an objective and a building just so happens to be in your way, you may have to either swing around it, or you may just, smack into the building and then have to climb up to the roof and then just continue facing forward, beelining it towards your objective. But if you're a blind player, that's going to be confusing to you, because you're like, oh, well, I hit a building, so you kind of just have to assume, oh, okay, well, let me climb it, get to the top, and then I can continue toward my waypoint, toward my objective. But when you're indoors, and this happens in other games as well, where, if you're indoors and there's a multi-story building, it may tell you that, oh, you need to vaguely go this way, but it may not really tell you that, it is upstairs. Or even if it kind of shows you, it might show you visually that your little waypoint is up, but there's nothing audibly that is confirming to the blind player that you can go up or down stairs, or that you have to go up and down stairs. On top of that, when you're in a building, um, even if it told you that you have to go upstairs for this objective, you kind of need a more constant navigation type assist, something like you would have in, to some extent, I would say God of War Ragnarok, but more so The Last of Us is the perfect example. Because that game, you're walking and running through very complex 3D environments. You're having to climb up on structures, climbing over cars, to then jump on a roof, to jump in a window, then shimmy down something, jump down, and you're going all over the place. But all the while, the navigation assist is kind of guiding you toward not just your primary objective, but if you want to track a side quest, if you want to track an enemy that's nearby, or there's an item nearby, their nav assist system will get you to any of those types of things. And in a game like Spider-Man, if you're indoors, let's say, you need to be able to know where you're going, and even if you do know that it's, let's say, up or down stairs, the blind player would have to know where the heck that staircase, or let's say even air vent, may be able to be, because a lot of these games will have you crawling through these heating ducts or air vents to get from one area of a building or one floor to another. So that can be a thing. And it's also more tricky because Spider-Man, he doesn't just walk on floors. You could be in a cathedral-sized building room inside, and you can, typically Spider-Man games, you can crawl on walls, you can crawl on ceilings, you can walk on the ground, you can swing through the air. So there's a little bit more like 3D complexity that's going to make navigating these worlds more tricky. And so, as Brandon said in his written review, yeah, it's great that they're adding audio description, menu narration. I'm very much looking forward to both, and that will probably, for me, be enough to make the game largely quite playable for me. I'll still have the challenge of the traversal, the flying, the combat. I'll have all of that, but that might be enough, especially if both are implemented well. That might be enough for me. If there's something that is not conveyed audibly, I can always use my remaining vision and work around things. But a totally blind player, unfortunately, does not have that luxury. So again, that's what you have to kind of consider when you're looking at accessibility. And, it's not my specialty, and I don't claim to be an expert. I will never claim to be an expert. But I also, if I notice some things in a game, whether it's for maybe somebody with a mobility impairment or hearing impairment, whatever, like let's say I know that subtitles are woefully lacking, or I notice that you can't rebind or recustomize your controls, that can be helpful for many players. I mean, I don't have a motor impairment, but I customize my controls all the time. So, these are things that I will point out that are usability and accessibility issues for everybody. So I did want to cover, especially with the attention that my Spider-Man 2 video thus far has gotten. Who knows what it'll be a week from now. I'm kind of surprised, but just wanted to elaborate a bit more on not just that review, or not just that video, but the way that I approach playing reviewing or covering games on the channel, how I look at consulting, because like I said, I do advocacy and consulting work outside of my day job as well in the area of technology and games accessibility. So I wanted to touch on that. The other thing that I wanted to originally, before this whole Spider-Man spiel came up, is I wanted to talk just a little bit, give some thoughts about the Game Accessibility Conference that just happened last Monday and Tuesday. Started out as a one-day conference, but the past couple of years now, it's a two-day conference. There's a North American version and a European version. We just had the North American version last week, and the European Game Accessibility Conference, or GAConf as it's normally called, is usually in the spring. So next spring we'll have a European edition. And this year was actually quite good. I really, really enjoyed it. They do have all of their videos up on their YouTube channel. I will try to remember to put a link in the description below so you can check out the playlist if you weren't able to attend live, or again, if you're discovering game accessibility, if you're discovering my channel for the first time and are just sort of more curious, go check out some of these videos, especially if you're a game developer. Go check out some of these videos. There are sessions from gamers with disabilities. There are sessions from developers who have created games and added accessibility design, accessibility features to their titles. There are panels of especially now that it's 2 days, the conference is 2 days, there are two panels. There is one panel that covers a topic from the gamer's point of view, and there's another panel the next day that covers things from a developer point of view, and they'll have kind of an overall theme or an overall topic for those panels, and those are always very interesting. I've been on two such panels myself, one in 2019 and one in 2022 last year. The first year, it was a few of us that were talking about being low vision gamers, and we are gamers first, low vision second, as it were said. And last year's panel was on mobile game accessibility, which, again, a lot more there's a lot more attention from developers put to mobile, and so we had a session on that. But like I said, these sessions are great. Indie developers, AAA developers, they cover all kinds of abilities, disabilities. And in the last, I would say, year or two, especially the last year or so, one pleasant trend that I'm really starting to see, and I really like, is there's been a focus on kind of switching the overall idea of accessibility, because a lot of people would really tend to think of accessibility as the more features, the more accessibility features a game has, the better it's going to be. And to some extent, this can be true. But actually, the way it should kind of be looked at more is accessibility can just be another aspect of core design that you add. I don't care if it's a game, if it's a building that you're making so that everyone can walk in the building and use the elevator, use ramps, access all the rooms, the conference rooms, the bathrooms, the restaurants, whatever. But whether it's like games or an app or an operating system, a productivity or a business program, baking accessibility into the design of your product is such a better way to go. And if you start doing that from the beginning, it's just a core part of your design, and it's just going to help so many more people overall, and it's going to be much less expensive to do than trying to figure out how to retrofit or bolt accessibility on later. So yes, there are certain types of accessibility features that, let's say, would often need to be added for a game. And I'm going to use blindness and low vision because that's what I'm familiar with. Things like menu narration, screen reader support, the ability to change the text size, maybe turn it from more of a stylized font into a more plain text readable font. And if instead of using cursive or old English, switching it to something like the Quake 1 and 2 remasters recently did that for their menus, and I love them for it. It's awesome. So those are features, of navigation assists. Whether you're in a vehicle or on foot or swinging through a city on webs, having some sort of in-world navigation, not having to rely on a stupid mini-map. Those are things that really help me as a low vision user. Those are things that are absolutely necessary for a blind player to enjoy certain types of games. And again, it depends on the genre. It depends on the type of game, because your accessibility needs for a driving game versus an open world exploration game versus a block puzzle game like, let's say, Tetris, or a match 3 game like Puzzle Quest or Bejeweled or whatever. All of those accessibility needs are going to be different, but there's still going to be certain types of features that are going to be, more universal. The ability to have subtitles for spoken content and audio cues, menu narration for blind players, control remapping. Those are like 3 core things that I can think of off the top of my head that just are just like you have graphics, sound, and control as part of your core video games. Those are 3 types of things that are part of your core accessibility. But I got a little off track there. But my point is that the Game Accessibility Conference is a great place. You can attend virtually, you can attend in person. I've been there in person once. I've been there since they started streaming it a few years ago. I've attended several times virtually, and they have a live Discord the whole time during the conference, so people can interact with one another. You make some great connections if you are a developer and want to, reach out to people to make your game more accessible. If you are a person with a disability and you want to get into advocacy and consulting work in the gaming industry, this is a great place to start. But like this year, like I said, there were so many great sessions, it's hard to remember them all. A couple of the games I mentioned early on in this video, Mortal Kombat 1, Forza, they had sessions that talked specifically about how they implemented and what they learned in implementing like the blind driver assist for Forza, the audio descriptions for the Mortal Kombat 1 game. And those are just the blindness related ones. There were sessions on like light sensitivity, there's stuff for like hearing and chronic fatigue. I can't even remember them all already because there were just so many. But like I said, there were things from the gamer's perspective, things from the developer perspective. There were some panels. There was a really good session on the second day that was about kind of how to work with a game developer. Let's say, you are a gamer and you want to provide feedback on like, hey, I would love to play your game, but unfortunately I'm not really able to because, there are aspects of accessibility that make it not playable for me. And that was a really good session because it was talking about like the balance between, do you send them kind of a bullet pointed list of a few short things because they're more likely to read it, even though it doesn't provide a full detail? Do you provide them a super well written like novel that's like 10 pages that really describes everything, that offers potential ideas for suggestions for fixing it or improving the lack of accessibility? Or do you do like a more of a balanced thing where you do both? Do you do like a bulleted list to kind of get their attention? And then if they choose, if they want to follow through, you then provide that extra information should they want to look at more ideas in detail. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. But he also talked about, just your overall kind of attitude, your approach. And one thing that stuck out to me that I thought was pretty interesting in that session is he said, your goal really isn't necessarily to fix that accessibility feature. Yes, it is. But your goal is really to develop that relationship with the developer, get their attention, get them to listen to you, get them to consider not even necessarily your solution, because maybe they did think about that solution, but there's an explanation to why they couldn't make that solution work. Maybe the engine is completely jacked and they can't make that compatible. Maybe, there's whatever number of reasons that they couldn't fix it in the way that you thought of. But your goal is really to establish that communication with that developer, so that you can, they can come up with ideas, you can come up with ideas, or you can kind of develop that ongoing communication, so that you can hopefully make that game or product more accessible. And then heck, maybe even going forward, they're developing a new title. Maybe you can be invited to be, you've built up that trust, you've proven yourself, and so maybe then you will, maybe they will reach out to you to be like a consultant, or so you can help make some of their future games more accessible. So, like I said, it's only been a week, but it's been so busy that, like I said, there's so many topics that happen at the Game Accessibility Conference. It was very, very good again. There were a couple sessions that I almost want to watch again just to kind of soak in some of the details and some of the information that I might have even missed, because I was also listening to the session and participating in the Discord chat. So yeah, I really just wanted to mention the Game Accessibility Conference because it really directly ties to the overall theme of this video. Before I do wrap up, the only other thing I will briefly sort of try to mention here, for those unaware, Microsoft does now, or has officially been able to close the deal. Apparently they do now own Activision Blizzard. This is a thing that's been going on and on for the last like 2 years. Honestly, I was getting sick of hearing about it. Normally I don't really approve. I don't like these types of buyouts and mergers and things like that. I mean, like I've said before, I find it really funny that you have all these like news sites and gaming sites and tech sites and podcasts and videos complaining about Amazon and Google and Microsoft and Apple, all these monopolies and, anti-business behaviors. And I think to myself, if you really cared about that, have you looked at the assistive technology industry in the last 20 years? No. No, of course you haven't, because it's a tiny niche market that not many people know or care about. But like the blindness field alone, I'm not going to name any specifics, but the immediate saying goes, if you can't beat them, buy them, comes to mind. And no, if they cared about antitrust and monopolies, they would have looked at the assistive technology industry years ago. I'm all for competition. I want there to be multiple assistive technology companies. I want there to be competition between console manufacturers and game developers, because it creates I think more for the people in the long run. You get competition. People are trying to outdo themselves, try to add new features, or make a cool new type of game that no one has ever seen or played before. Um, it can help keep prices down because you're trying to be competitive, and you're like, well, if I own everything, I can just set the price anything that I want, and people will pay it because they have to. Um, I mean, I have mixed feelings on the Microsoft buyout because, on one hand, yeah, I'm not really super keen on having another just ginormous, um, we own everything buyout. But on the other hand, at least in its current form, I think with what Microsoft is doing, both in just consumer friendly and at least accessibility friendly, we have things like Game Pass, backwards compatibility. Those are just mainstream features that everybody likes. And then you have the focus, I think really since the Satya Nadella regime and Phil Spencer, they've really kind of focused a lot more on Windows accessibility, Xbox accessibility. And so if they can bring some more of that and bring more assistance to Activision and Blizzard Studios to try to help make their games and their software more accessible, that's a good thing. And if we can somehow, I don't, I guess he's going to be there until the end of the year. Not sure about after that, but if we can get rid of Bobby Kotick, all the better. Um, he's just somebody that needs to go. Um, Hopefully they can straighten some of that stuff out. It really sucks that even if he does go, he's going to get his big fat golden parachute of like $18 billion. It's like, oh, hey, I can, be ruthless and as the head of this or the executive of this company and, treat people like I don't want to get into this rant because I could rant about this, especially with all the announcements of game closures over the last 6 months, year or so. It makes me very, very angry that these executives get paid like 800 times more than their highest other paid employee. But our company isn't making enough money, so we got to lay off 50 to 80% of our workforce. Oh, because I need my second yacht and we got to make our shareholders happy. F you. That's all I'm going to say about it because I could rant about that. Oh, I mean, I work for the man, I work for the government in my day job, and yeah, they do their own levels of stupidity sometimes, but big business executives, that type of thing really bothers me. But if we can at least get rid of them, maybe we'll have a shot of, maybe Activision will be ran a little bit better. Maybe they won't sit on some of their franchises. Maybe they will, because they own. Oh, was it? They own the Tony Hawk franchise, and with the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remaster, that was really well done. By the way, if they would, make a new game in that series that didn't suck like Tony Hawk 5 did, we'll never speak of that again. Um, but they could do something with that. They've got Hexen, they've got somebody had posted a list of like just a bunch of games and franchises that Microsoft would now have access to. And with the way that Microsoft is, focusing on bringing back old franchises or backwards compatibility, that kind of a thing, play anywhere, that's another thing, cross buy, cross play. So a lot of what Microsoft is doing is really good. I'm not a fan of these big buyouts and mergers and things like that, but at least in this case, at least there's a silver lining to it because Microsoft is actually being reasonable for now, and I could at least see some positivity coming out of it. And speaking of positivity, that's where we are going to end this video. There was a couple other topics that I think, going to at least acknowledge or mention, but A, I can't even remember what they are. But B, I'm not going to cover them right now just because I want to really keep this video on point and where we're talking about overall game accessibility, not just Spider-Man 2. Yes, I acknowledged a lot of that in the beginning, but it all ties together in, what I do, not just myself, but we have an increasing number of people with all kinds of disabilities that are playing games, that are streamers, that are YouTubers, that are advocates, consultants, speakers, people that make podcasts. There are there are people, of course, with all kinds of disabilities doing game development. There are blind programmers, there are, I covered a game recently. Shout out to Zach, Xanagrams. He taught himself how to code for iOS, and he has a accessible anagrams game that came out earlier this year that I covered on the channel. So it works with VoiceOver, it's accessible. He's still working on adding some updates for low vision accessibility. But yeah, so like I said, we are out here, and this is the kind of, okay, I only have 3,000 some subscribers, which, I don't have hundreds of thousands. I don't have the millions of subscribers, and people can make fun of it all they want, but, that's fine. I don't care. I very much appreciate the support that I have gotten, both in the gaming industry, from the blind and low vision community, from the viewers, from people that email or comment in the videos, or converse with me on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it now. Very much appreciate that. And if it weren't for the channel, if it weren't for Twitter, I can't tell you how many opportunities this last 5-10 years has opened up for me. So I love what I do, and this is what I'm going to continue to focus on, covering technology, games, XR, who knows what else, but really just trying to cover the blind low vision accessibility side of things. Helping people determine when something comes out, is it something that they should invest their time and money in, or should they stay away because it's not accessible? So with that, I will wrap up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you found it helpful. I hope I addressed maybe some of the recent comments in the Spider-Man video. If you did watch the Spider-Man video, and if you watched or listened to this video, thanks for at least checking out Illegally Cited. I hope that it does give you a better perspective of that accessibility is a thing, and that we are out here. If you want to support the channel, I don't ask for money. I don't really ask for anything in return, but if you like the videos, if you subscribe, check out some of the other playlists, check out some of the other content creators, videos, podcasts, streamers. Try some, if you're a gamer, if you're a non-disabled gamer, go play one of these indie games, play one of these AAA games, and check out some of the accessibility. You might even find a feature or two that you might like. And then be like, oh, hey, you know what? Just this low vision sort of clarity, or this high contrast feature, God, that does make things stand out a little bit bigger. Or, God forbid, making the text size a little bit larger, that can be helpful to anybody. So yeah, hope this was helpful. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegallycited.com, right here on YouTube. Give the video a like if you did. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. I don't usually say that, but I figure it's appropriate for this video. And until next time, I will chat with everybody again later.